The Serpent and the Rainbow is a 1988 American horror film directed by Wes Craven, starring Bill Pullman, Kathy Tyson, and Zack Taylor.
From Wes Craven, director of A Nightmare on Elm Street, comes a story of the forbidden world between life and death.
There's a door to the mystical, and you just walk through it.
Somebody brought him back from the grave, and I want to know how they did it.
Death is not the end.
I'll take your soul.
You think you can take these people's secrets and just walk away?
In the shadows of the imagination lies the ultimate nightmare.
Don't let them bury me. I'm not dead.
The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and I really like zombie dust. Oh yeah, and Coleman Yeti and Johnny Mulligans are here too.
Making jokes before John can use them.
Sorry, I'm laughing more than I should be, probably.
Gentlemen, we are talking about 1988's The Serpent and the Rainbow. This is from Horror Master, not The Horror Master, because that's a term coined by John Carpenter. But I think Wes Craven, he is way up there as well. This is one of his best and most underrated films. I'm just putting my cards out on the table. This movie was so great to go back to that I even made a Magic the Gathering deck about it after I watched it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, oh god.
Nerd.
So this one is based on a research book from Wade Davis, not a novel, not a fictional novel. Wade Davis is a real person. He traveled to Haiti, and the Serpent and the Rainbow book was about his findings about Haitian voodoo practices and real life zombification. And Wes Craven got, little birdie told him about that was a thing. And he's like, fuck, that's like, that writes itself. So Coleman, what did you think of a white guy went down to Haiti, fucked around and found out?
I had no idea what I was getting into. I'd never heard of or seen this movie before, just based on I didn't really look at the cover when you sent it to me. So I'm like, oh, this is just going to be some shitty horror, like B horror film. It was much better than I expected it to be. I didn't realize it was going to be Wes Craven, and I got some interesting vibes off it to begin with, but the whole movie itself was actually done well. I mean, it's a pretty good movie beyond the non-zombie movie.
Initial thoughts on The Serpent and the Rainbow, Johnny?
I think Bruce Campbell's method acting as Bill Pullman playing Dennis Allen was amazing. Hats off the costume for tucking in that chin and jawline. In 1988, I don't know how they did it.
Groovy.
I genuinely love this movie. The whole time, as soon as he started doing the ayahuasca trip, I'm like, why didn't they cast Campbell? Like, this is a Bruce Campbell movie. Keep everything else the same, put Bruce Campbell in, and you've now got horror and comedy together perfectly. I would love to have seen that, but still, great movie. this movie was just so much fun to watch.
Yes.
And there's like a feel to horror flicks from the 80s. And I talk about Bruce Campbell because a lot of the kind of grit and feel you get from those types of movies you saw in Evil Dead and you saw in some other Bruce Campbell movies. But this one, same thing. Like, they didn't have flashy special effects. They had to like really go to costume and set design, like make it happen. So like they had to put in the work and like the blood, sweat, and tears and love to make this happen. And they did it. They did it here. I love this movie.
I loved that, and this is kind of jumping the gun talking about actors already, but I mean, Bill Pullman, this is just another reason that I think they need to, before Bill Pullman gets too old and dies, he needs to be cloned. Because the cinematic universe, just think about his roles, like Spaceballs, Independence Day, this, like he is such a breadth of ability, and he plays this whole thing straight. He's a little douchey in this, it's fine.
The way Professor Schoenbacher spoke of you, it was as though you could walk on water. Now I know why. Shit floats.
It's fine to say, but he's so good in this, like just reacting to the terrifying things that are happening to him and keeping his head on straight and keeping that conviction, because almost everything is about destroying this man's dick. Like the scene in the beginning, we're going to talk about the little ayahuasca scene at the beginning where he and his helicopter pilot that winds up dead for some reason, which is never really explained, and no one ever cares about Randy the helicopter pilot. Like,
Right.
he is on this expedition in Haiti, this guy, and before he leaves, he's taking this ayahuasca. I need to defer to Coleman on a couple of these things for your expertise, but I don't think the ayahuasca would ever make you wrestle a jaguar.
No, it does not make you wrestle a fake jaguar.
Okay.
That's not part of what happens.
Okay.
To clarify, we generalize ayahuasca. We have no idea what was in that drink.
Right.
Yeah. For all we know, it could have been the smashed up little bugs that were in the Willy Wonka remake from the Oompa Loompas. Who the fuck knows? Going back to Bill Pullman's dick, because this is, I mean, that's what we're really here for, is it telegraphs everything. Like in that little scene, it tells you everything you need to know. It shows that this jaguar is his spirit animal, and it's going to lead him throughout this entire impossible maze for this little, this scared white boy in a Haiti neighborhood to kind of navigate. and he navigates it well, but then it shows the villain right off the bat. Like, he doesn't know what this guy looks like or anything, but it shows him. And then the first hand that comes out of the ground just grabs his dick and then it pulls him down by his balls. And it's like, little did we, and I'm like, I remember seeing that. I'm like, wow, that is a very specific place to show that he's getting grabbed and pulled underground by. Little did I know later on that they were going to add a support beam onto his testicles later.
I did not notice that it grabbed his dick or his balls.
Yeah,
it was his balls. He specifies later on.
Yes.
My scrotum.
Right.
Just the scrotum, so it's fine.
I'm so glad they really specified. They that little one, they could have just left the imagination and people would be like, what did they get? I don't know. Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be fair. This was in the 80s, so everything in the 80s that happened to white men everybody had a little case in the not gays where if there was any kind of like, oh, maybe there's an innuendo, it's like, oh no, but I'm not gay. Like they wanted to make sure that you knew that your male white protagonist was not gay, and that this one, they weren't gonna wreck his dick because he's still, he's a white man. He needs to use his dick. So no, they just
in the movie.
They just did a non-lethal blow to his balls later on. Going back to Wes Craven, this is his 10th film. He's known for, I just fucking IMDb him, but okay, I'm here. So, The Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, and so many more. Like I said, this is just my favorite film of his, and I'm so glad that you guys like this. Very interesting because it's all about voodoo and the occult, and I love that culture. And usually when you see voodoo-centric movies, you see it like based in New Orleans or Savannah, where it's like, it's scary, but it's also familiar because you're in the U.S. and you have that sense, like, oh, it's almost like a security blanket. Like, in this movie, they're like, fuck it, you're in Haiti, which is dangerous anyway. It's voodoo.
Where it comes from.
Oh, totally. And it's just like, and there's a revolution going on, too.
I really enjoyed that this movie was 100% true story. If I'm to believe the beginning credits.
Right.
I'm pretty sure based on a true story means all real.
Of course.
So
yeah, right down to the phase matter shifting and spontaneous combustion, 100%.
Yeah. Well, and Zombie Man jumping through walls like a jaguar.
Yeah.
Even though he's been set on fire and disappeared, Yeah. I mean, it's very realistic.
Let's go on what this film is about. Let's kind of get some plot points. So who feels up to it?
Bill Pullman, playing Dennis Allen, is this Harvard University researcher, doctor type person looking for medicines around the world, and a pharmaceutical company wants him to go to Haiti and find out this what they use to do this zombification thing, because this person who was zombified came back and can actually talk, when in most cases of any of this like zombification, they just come back and they are brain dead, and to the point of they can barely function, but they can function, but they can't talk and they can't tell you what happened. So Pullman's character goes down to Haiti. He needs to find the zombie powder, and this is the tale of his adventure and finding that zombie powder and meeting all these people and seeing all these rituals and getting familiar with the natives and doing what you do as a Harvard doctor, I guess.
Yeah, in the middle of a voodoo political, war and revolution. I love the fact that they portrayed voodoo's light side and dark side. You had both, because in a regular horror film, you just would have seen all the scary shit. But they actually have it to where it was like families and stuff that were taking this like march down to this like beautiful, like tranquil waterfall. And it's just like, that was the beautiful side of voodoo. And you had your fire eaters and your stabbing or putting needles through. And it's just like, there's that showmanship and there was all that just pizzazz of kind of like tourist level stuff. So you got to see so many different sides to this. And then, of course, the super terrifying stuff as well. Right.
When anything super terrifying was going to happen, Black Waluigi showed up to beat him up, steal him, hijack him, whatever needed to happen.
Yeah.
That mustache, though.
That's exactly him. Yeah. Yeah. Fucking Zack Taylor, man. Like, hats off. I think he just died a couple years ago, but... after this, I looked at like just other stuff. He was in a ton of shit, but he was so good in this. Like, such an underrated performance. Like, he plays Police Chief Dargent Petrod. He just has this like cool, like totally under control. He gives off this feeling of inevitability. He's like a Mike Myers or a Jason Voorhees, where he's just like, yeah, it's cool. Like, I'm gonna get you in the end. Like, keep fucking around. I'm gonna catch up. Like, and he doesn't even just like catch up. It's just like Bill Pullman goes and does something he shouldn't be doing, and then the very next scene, he's like thrown back in the bus. Just like, fuck, we're here again. He's constantly just like progressive disciplining Bill Pullman during this entire thing, because it's just like this ramp up where he's just like, okay, that's a write up, that's gonna cost you, just this is our verbal, and then the next one costs him a little bit of nut blood, and then it goes into it's just always this ramp up, and it's just like, what would make a dictator like Hitler or something like that much more terrifying, that's like in control of his own secret police? Oh yeah, make him a fucking voodoo shaman. Like, this guy was just incredible. I love this villain.
Let him inject himself into all of your dreams and nightmares and control them, and
so good.
Zakes did killer work. I liked his character. He was a menacing, compelling character. I just love the way he did a great job.
I do have a question for you guys, because I was watching this and there's the ayahuasca, we call it the ayahuasca scene in the beginning. At this point, Dr. Allen has never met Zakes, right? But he's inserted himself into that hallucination. And then like later on, there's that scene where he's sleeping next to the Haitian girl that's like kind of his guide throughout this entire thing. And he has that dream about the zombie bride with the other guy that comes back. Is he fucking with him the entire time, even before he knows him?
Yeah, it seems like it, because when he saw him again, he recognized him.
Right,
he recognized him from his dream, but why would Zakes have any idea who the hell he was?
Exactly.
I think that scene in the Amazon is maybe a combo. I feel like it was more premonition, like a heads up, hey, you're down this path, and because Zakes is this voodoo shaman, like he's already tuned into that frequency, so he's like, aha, someone's on the way. So he's kind of like already getting primed for it. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily all Zake's, because the scene where they're on the pilgrimage and it is the zombie bride that they show where he gets bit in the face with a snake.
What a scene. What a fucking scene.
Like, here's this zombie bride, shows up, pulls her door open, crackle, crackle. Ah! Snake! What the hell?
Yeah.
Right up the lip, come on!
This movie wasn't, so I expected it to be really cheesy. I expected it, I mean, maybe not quite like House 2 cheesy, but like I said, just cheesy B horror film. And I was surprised that it was like, there was less cheese factor to it than I thought. Mm-hmm. But there was certain things, and even watching through a couple times, I just didn't quite understand why were they sleeping in the jungle? I didn't get that.
I think that's what they were just all doing wasn't that during the pilgrimage down to that waterfall area, maybe? I don't know.
Was it a pilgrimage? Like, I didn't feel like it was very well explained that they were doing this thing. It was like, oh, well, now everyone's sleeping in the jungle, and now here's this zombie terrible nightmare, and now we're all getting clean in the waterfall.
I think that was more of these dream sequences are more of kind of like a breakaway from reality when he goes to this sleep space and then he's being haunted by things that.
Oh right, but why the fuck is it in the jungle?
No, like that was like a throwaway line. Like, we can't go back to the hotel, so we blended ourselves into this. It's the only white dude in Haiti.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say that was part of the pilgrimage. Is they had to. That was just on the way. They didn't have a Airbnb on the way to this sacred waterfall or whatever. But
they were the pilgrimage was cover. They knew that they were in danger. They knew they couldn't go to their usual. They couldn't go to ground in their usual places. They needed to try and stay clear of the authorities because he has already stirred the hornet's nest. So they've got to get out of town, and this pilgrimage happens to be happening. So it's that one line, like, we couldn't go back to the hotel, so we found our way into this pilgrimage, and that's what they did. And that's why, along with everybody else on this trek, they all just set up camp and managed not to burn the forest down with candles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I thought about that.
It's the rainforest.
You know what, John? You need to make up your goddamn mind. You're willing to accept giant holes in certain movies just because you're like, I love this movie, and other movies you want to nitpick the shit out of. Like, well, this little thing didn't match up with whatever, and so now the whole movie's just terrible. That's how you talk, by the way.
Hey,
just
man.
Like that.
It's like one day maybe I'll get a podcast so I could just, vomit my bad takes. Oh, wait. Yeah. No, that was the other thing. But, okay. So here, I could kind of answer that question with another question. Is this movie is fun, and it's that mystical element, and it has, the questions are fun, where other movies that I feel like we've talked about that I've kind of shit on, where I'm just like, wow, movie logic and whatever. It's like, who cares? It's just dumb movie and movie plots. They did such a good job of fleshing out not only these characters, but this environment and this world and everything that's going on into a 90-minute runtime. This is a normal standard runtime, and I think there was a 3-hour cut of this, but Wes Craven's just like, yeah, Americans, let's just do 90 minutes for a horror movie, and he was probably correct. But like, there is like the questions are fun, and the questions are fun to discuss. Like, my next question is, why was this zombie corpse bride so important? It was another one of those instances, like how Zake's character inserted himself in the beginning of his premonitions before he even met him, where it's just like he has this dream of this corpse bride that, like, distends her jaw and like lets out the snake out of his mouth.
Right.
And then later on, we find out that that's the key corpse that's going to make the powder. Like, are these premonitions, or because if you think that it's all coming from Zake's character, then why would he be helping him in that way?
I mean, part of it didn't feel like it all came from Zake's. Part of it felt like it was all pieces of
We're saying Zake's like we
the
know
original.
him.
What's that?
We're saying Zake's like we're on first name basis with this actor.
Oh, that's my homie.
Zakey, yeah.
When he was alive. everything that Bill Pullman sees doesn't feel like it's necessarily controlled by Zakes. Pieces of it also feel like they're coming from the original trip that he took, ayahuasca, whatever the hell it is, whatever he took. Parts of it feel like it's his own spiritual awakening, and then Zakes just kind of invades the dreams. But it doesn't seem like it all comes from that. Part of it is, I don't know, his leopard fucking spirit guide guiding him through Haiti.
Yeah.
Helping him get laid and get his nuts hit.
Maybe I was just thinking about, maybe this is more, the whole Amazon experience is more of a, here's your deja vu juice.
Mm-hmm.
No, really, like, if you think about it, I'm looking up like the meaning for deja vu. It's kind of like, maybe it's not just Zake's character, like Dargent, invading his dreams. This is kind of like premonitions, and that's what the whole experience with the Amazon shaman was. I want to show you something because there's like this vibe in the air. You're on this path, so we're just gonna kickstart that deja vu and make sure you've got the heads up. Like, you're going to see these things, and when you see them, you're less freaked out, but you're also more freaked out. It's like as a crisscross of these. I've seen this before. I've been here, but I can't tell anyone because they'll think I'm crazy. As he's hunting down zombie powder, whatever.
Well, and later on, it specifically shows Trod fucking with him. Like when he actually does escape with the powder and goes back to that dinner scene, which is probably my favorite scene in the entire film, because it's like this nice mix between like the Beetlejuice dinner scene and Eraserhead, where everything is just like fine. We're sitting down, we're having a nice meal, we're gonna have some wine, and then just that not random lady, but like the wife of the coworker just starts chewing on the glass.
New to a new.
Deborah, sit down, Deborah.
It's just such a creepy image, and like if it was done wrong, it would have just come out as a cheesy gag. But everyone is just like so deadly serious. My point is, it cuts away and it shows Bertrand is there back in Haiti, actually doing this spell. So he is definitely controlling Dr. Allen to a certain extent. It's just I didn't know, how far when that starts. But like Coleman said, it kind of like the start of this is when he shows up to the dinner theater, like the Haitian luau, for lack of a better term. He does look at Dr. Dennis Allen, and he has that familiarity, just like, oh nope, yep, that's who you are, and I'm gonna fuck with you. I think a huge factor, and a lot of horror movies have done this since then, but for a 1988 horror film, especially one from Wes Craven, that separates this film from its genre peers is the lack of jump scares. The movie just like displays terror, and it has that like unsettled dream quality on purpose, of course. But when it does do the jump scares, it's 100% earned. Like the dream sequence in the jungle where wakes up and he sees this zombie bride, and you could tell there is something definitely wrong with her even before he pulls the veil over, and this horrible thing making these like very creepy sounds is like slowly walking up. It builds an anxiety that not a lot of other horror movies, especially of the time, does.
This was smartly done, really was. And I guess the only other thing I can think of is the effects that came through. I think the scene, like the very beginning, I joke about Bruce Campbell, but honest to God, I really would have loved to seen something like that. This setting, this serious tone, but then you take somebody like Bruce Campbell, who kind of is, known for B-level, kind of campy kind of stuff, but I think that would have been so much fun to watch, to see him in this role. Nothing against Pullman, but that's all the time, like from the very first trip in the beginning of the movie, right up to the very end. Like there's these moments where the mannerisms of Dennis Allen is something I'd expect from an actor like Campbell. And then at the end, with the chair getting sucked into the floor, finally the nail comes flying through the air. I want to hear you scream like,
yeah. But then it wouldn't be a Wes. It wouldn't be a Wes Craven film.
Sam Raimi film.
If you substituted Bruce Campbell, it would have been a very, very different movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I see what you're saying, but you would lose the seriousness.
I just constantly found myself thinking, what would Bruce Campbell do? I'm gonna get the bracelet.
Yeah. And there is a certain goofiness, I think, to Bill Pullman.
Yeah.
You know, and it presents itself here and there throughout the movie, just in his mannerisms, but not to the Bruce Campbell, extent. I love the fact that this movie's about zombies. I mean, they use the word zombie throughout, but it's not a zombie movie.
Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not about actual zombies in the sense of how we think of zombies. It's not the virus, whatever. It's more the voodoo, like we control people, and there's the magical aspect, and there's one, I think, kind of funny line when he's talking about how the powder is made. It's like, and more magic sewn in than we will ever understand. It's like, okay, well, you're getting X amount of powder to take back. Like, unless you learn the fucking magic, how are you going to make this powder again? Because you're acknowledging that it requires magic. But no, I love the fact that it's, there's one zombie, but he's a guy that can actually talk and whatever. And the only difference is he's missing his soul, because that's the one magical piece of this, is they can take people's souls and control them.
It's more of a clinical term, zombie.
Right.
But then it does make that turn as a movie also, and goes more spiritual. And that's, we could kind of get into a couple things that didn't work, or maybe didn't work for everyone, and one of them was the ending was like super polarized, especially for the time when it was released, because a lot of people wish that the supernatural elements were just more kind of implied or more on the peripheral. But at the end, once he gets back, when the revolution is going on and he gets to Patron, that's when kind of everything is revealed, and then it just goes super like kind of haunted house and spooky. In my opinion, I feel like the film earned it, the kind of an unhinged fun ending, because if it were just serious all the time, maybe it wouldn't have been so much fun or so enjoyable of a ride. But I didn't want it to go super silly, like seeing Bruce Campbell in the role either. So I think that the taking it so seriously medically to then going kind of batshit unhinged funhouse at the end really worked for me. What did you guys think?
Part of like this visual, it ties in with the title of the movie too. There's not just about here's all these spirits. You see these little flashes of rainbow light coming through when these spirits are breaking out of the jars. So it's like, there's your rainbow scene. In the jungle, you've got your snake scene, and they give you an explanation of the whole belief system behind it. So it tied in. It felt like there was a little bit of cheesiness to it, but then at the same time, it's like the serpent and the rainbow. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's the other side of the coin. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Somebody's about to fall on a pile of skulls and burst into flames and just vanish. Just straight up vanish. I was like,
only to reappear jumping through the wall.
Right. like a pouncing jaguar.
They had the labyrinth scene where he falls down, and it was like the hands, and it's like, we're helping hands. She chose down.
Yes.
Coleman, I don't know. Did you like the ending, or did you wish it would have kind of stayed a little bit more serious and clinical?
No, I like the ending. I mean, again, I expected it to be more silly than it was, just based on the cover art.
Sure.
So I expected it to be more silly. There was a little bit of silliness throughout. I enjoyed the ending. And some of the random gore scenes, like when the like good side guy gets his head, like pulls his head off and like rips it off and it stretches and whatever.
Pops it
the
like
effects
a zit.
of that, the effects of that were a lot of fun. So I did like the both sides of this movie, that it had that serious side where they're trying to actually accomplish something, and then there was just kind of the cheesy voodoo magic side at the end.
Yeah.
And if we want to use movie logic to explain away some things, we're talking about Pullman at that point at the end is still recovering from this zombification anesthetic. So he's still technically tripping balls. And this may not have actually been happening.
Sure.
He's just
true.
He's like lost. He is totally not in his proper mental headspace. So
he's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, he's like it's his subjective confidence. He's just looking at this and being like, he doesn't really know what he's seeing, but we're getting to see it, so we get to kind of go along for the ride. So he's tripping hard and trying to function like a normal human being, saving someone's life at the same time. I think that's a fair enough explanation of what's happening for the ending. So yeah, I think Wes Craven was probably mindful of that, and it's like, oh, can we pull this off? Can we really? Is there a proper explanation? Oh, right, we blew dust in his face, and he's totally losing his mind.
Sure.
Okay, that works. Good job.
Which is true, because she did come in and the floor was solid, and
yeah, the chair was gone.
It didn't actually happen. Yeah.
See, and that's what's cool. That's what's cool, because you get to talk about it and get to kind of discuss it and argue it after the fact. And that's what, you know, going back to your question earlier to why I shit on other things and not shit on this, is because it leaves it there's a difference between tying it up in a bow for, you know, just being like, yeah, it's a movie logic, to where this is like, oh, it's kind of like, it's open to interpretation, and it's fun to discuss with other people about, like, what do you think that this means, and what do you think happens? And just going back to Paul Winfield real quick, I don't know what it was, like, he must have just not wanted to put on makeup, but every time he died, which was twice, which he's the good voodoo shaman, like, he goes down and the scorpion comes out, and it's just like a horrible, like, looking mask. Like, some of the effects don't really hold up, and then the pop zit head was just adorable. I thought it was hilarious.
It was hilarious. I very much enjoyed it.
That felt Sam Raimi Evil Dead to me.
Yeah.
My biggest
and the excessively long zombie arms coming out of the jail cell.
I love that. Yeah. They look like gremlin arms, kind of.
Yes.
my biggest beef with this film is the fucking extensive inner monologue voiceover from Bill Pullman. I could have done without that a little bit, and I guess that's kind of like more of a nod to the story, because that kind of is just like, okay, I'm a researcher and this is my journal entries, my logs, you know, and it's just like, nah, I don't fucking care. Like, this isn't the Terrence Malick film. I don't need to know what everyone's thinking all the time. Just show me what's going on. I don't care that the helicopter pilot is dead for no reason. Let's move on. Let's go. Let's do more fun voodoo shit.
Yeah.
I get it, but at the same time, I grew up on Airplane the movie, and that was a big piece of that movie.
But that was
when
a parody.
That happened in this, when that happened in this movie, I was kind of like, yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah. Before we get into who would we recommend this film to, I just want to say Brad Fiedel, who did Terminator 1 and 2, Fright Night, and Johnny Mnemonic. I liked his little eerie score. I don't always point out the score. I have been, I feel like, more so lately, but I liked this score because he had that like jungle kind of like Haitian voodoo magic stuff going on, and it was just a nice backbone. It was never like in the forefront of what was going on. Like, Wes Craven definitely let what the actors were saying and like the visuals kind of do the talking of the story, but it was a nice backbone, very subtle score on this one. It's pretty underrated, especially for like horror movies are more like, you could point out the scores more like, you know, the Halloween score or something like that. Like those are meant to have like a forefront theme, where this one doesn't really have that, but it's just a nice companion piece to what's going on. But I'll start this one off. I would recommend this to genre fans that are looking for something a little bit more psychological, especially for in that era. But if you like Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions, if you like John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, this is just totally your jam. This is totally my jam. It's my favorite Wes Craven film by far. And he's done some great ones, so that's kind of saying a lot from me. Coleman, would you recommend this film, and who would you recommend it for?
Well, first I want to say you want to recommend this to people that like something more psychological, but don't know who to recommend The Cell to. Jesus.
That's a callback to either a prior or a future episode.
I would recommend this to voodoo lovers, mustache aficionados. We really did not talk enough about that guy's mustache, because that was phenomenal. The Waluigi, oh man,
it's good.
Are you talking about his like the lieutenant officer, like the lead cop? Yeah, that was some serious grooming. That was
the Goebbels of the Haitian
it's
secret
amazing.
Police. Yeah.
It's a serious horror film with elements of the B horror to it and elements of realism to it too. So, there you go.
Johnny, would you recommend this to your grandma?
Sure. I think, yeah, you guys kind of nailed it. This one's just, I just had fun with this movie. If you're a fan of 80s horror, anything like quality 80s horror, you're gonna like this movie. It was just, Wes Craven did a great job, and it was just a well-done movie.
R.I.P. Wes Craven. Jesus Christ, this man knew how to do tension for sure. That is our review of The Serpent and the Rainbow. Magic the Gathering deck tech here to follow soon. No, not really. If you like this, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and listen to this on the podcasting websites like Spotify and Stitcher and all those good things. You could follow this very show on Twitter at The Cult of Films. Johnny Mulligans, where can everyone find you?
You can find me here in the Cult of Film episodes. And you can find me on Twitter at J_Mulligans. Yeah.
Coleman, when people aren't trying to murder your testicles, where can everyone find you?
Well, that's rare. But when they're not, you can find me at Coleman Yeti on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me occasionally on the channel Cascade Backcountry on YouTube. Go watch our most recent video and find out about the tweaker we met high in the mountains.
Oh.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Did he practice voodoo?
He might have. He said some outlandish shit.
Perfect. Well, definitely subscribe to that
tweaker.
channel for the follow up to that. If that's not a reason to follow that, then I don't know what is. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at John the Host. Until next time, remember your codpiece.